Indian firm, particularly Bharti Airtel, and the 2.2 billion sale by International Petroleum Investment Company, Abu Dhabi's foreign wealth fund, a sovereign wealth fund, of a 70% stake in Hyundai Oil Bank in the Republic of Korea. However, West Asian greenfield projects abroad, mainly targeting developing countries, have also dropped by some 52% in value in 2010, and government-controlled entities, which are West Asia's main outward investors, have been redirecting part of their oil surplus to support their home country weakened, by the global financial crisis. So actually, most governments, most sovereign funds have been investing in their own economy and divesting from abroad. Now, a brief look at the FDI prospects for West Asia in the coming years. UNCTAD expects inflows to improve in general. We can see that there are significant opportunities for foreign investors, which are due to ambitious infrastructure development plans in the region, so a lot of opportunities in the infrastructure sector. However, we expect some mixed prospects for outflows in the short term. Most governments in West Asia are expected to continue to redirect money towards social expenditures to preempt or respond to popular discontent. In the medium term, cash-rich financial institutions from the Gulf region are likely to acquire foreign companies that can deliver both short and long-term gains to investors. So allow me to turn a little bit to the second part of this presentation and say a few words about recent investment policy developments. With respect to investment policies, governments are sending actually mixed signals to investors. National investment policies continue to be characterized by two trends in opposite directions. On the one hand, many countries seek to attract foreign direct investment through liberalization, facilitation and promotion policies. So a lot of countries are still opening up their economies to welcome FDI. On the other hand, what we have noticed is that there is also a move towards more regulation and restriction of foreign direct investment. So we can see there is a certain protectionism which is on the rise. The international investment policy framework continues to expand, mostly through bilateral treaties. So we have noticed that there is an expansion of, signature, conclusion of bilateral investment treaties between countries. And the regime of international investment agreements, what we commonly call as IIAs, has continued actually to evolve through the conclusion of new treaties and through arbitral awards issued in the conflicts, in the context of investor-state dispute settlement. Now, let us have a look on what's going on, in the area of policy in your region, in West Asia. Investment policy measures have generally improved, the conditions of foreign direct investment. What we can say is that some countries are, have fully opened up new sectors to foreign direct investment. For instance, like in Qatar. Also, other countries have raised the ceiling of for foreign ownership. Like, for instance, in the Syrian Arab Republic, they have made it a little bit more difficult to invest. A number of countries have reduced taxes to stimulate the economy as a whole, or particular sectors or regions, and this is the case particularly in Turkey and Oman. So again, it's the same as at the world level. It's mixed signals. However, the commitment which seems to prevail in West Asia for, for ambitious infrastructure plans, we expect that this will support a recovery in FDI flows. This brings me to look at the third part and final part of the presentation, which is investing in a low carbon economy. FDI in low carbon business is really growing rapidly worldwide. And what we can say that low carbon FDI is in fact already quite large and sizable, and its potential is huge. FDI flows in renewable energy, recycling, low carbon manufacturing of products alone reached some $90 billion in the year 2009, and some 40% of low carbon FDI projects by value during the period 2003 to 2009 were, mostly in developing, countries. 40%, that's quite sizable as well. What we have noticed is that established TNCs are actually the major investors in low carbon economy, but there are also new players which are emerging. TNCs from other industries are expanding into low-carbon business areas, and approximately 10% of identifiable low-carbon FDI projects in the period 2003 and 2009 were generated by TNCs, transnational corporations, from developing and transition economies, and most of them were targeting other developing countries. So it's really a lot of South-South FDI in this area as well. What we can say is that TNCs are both parts of the problem, but also, they will be the providers of solutions to the problem. TNCs, as we know, are major emitters of carbon dioxide, but they also have a crucial role to play in developing and disseminating low-carbon technology. A major policy concern in connection with TNC operations, what we see in UNCTAD, is that carbon leakage, which is the relocation of carbon-intensive production from highly regulated places to countries with less stringent or no regulation, on emissions. So we are afraid that there might be a leakage problem there. What we can say also is that instead of dealing with it at the border, the issue could be addressed at the source, working through corporate governance mechanism. What we can see is that government have really to pay attention and see that some of these companies have really good rules, good policies. The developing countries need to examine very carefully what are the pros and cons of low carbon foreign investment. When they determine whether or to what extent they should be facilitating this type of investment. What we can say is that there is no one-size-fits-all solution. It's a policy mix which is needed, to really take into account the country-specific conditions when we are developing, the policy package that government should adopt. They really should look at their own internal conditions. In the World Investment Report 2010, which is available, it's this, this thick copy. You will see at the end there is a whole chapter which is on policies and what to do, what kind of policies are available to governments. I think it's interesting to really look at that and study it. I will not be able to present all the policies that are, presented in that part, but I would just mention, some. Is that what we propose as UNCTAD in this report is a new global partnership to galvanize the low carbon investment. And this partnership, we can see that it can have 5 major components. The first one is to establish a clean investment promotion strategy. So it's very important for IPAs, investment promotion agencies, to develop a proper strategy, to attract clean investment. Also, it will be very important to enable the dissemination of clean technology, policy, and policy frameworks, so that to make this information available, to create awareness. We also need to secure more international investment agreements to contribute and to have provisions, on clean energy and clean technology in these IAAs. Also, what is really needed is to harmonize corporate GHG emissions disclosure. So again, for companies to have a better disclosure procedure. And also what we suggest in our report is to set up an international low-carbon technical assistance center to help countries with this important issue. What are the major components of clean investment promotion strategy, which I just mentioned before, that IPAs should really look at or develop? One of the major elements will be that a conducive host country policy framework. The country needs to have a host country policy framework with provisions of adequate investment protection, incentives, and regional integration agreements. Also, we need policies to create markets for low-carbon industries, to promote the creation of such industries. Foreign investment in new low-carbon industries may not be competitive right now, but we will hear later on from the panel how competitive it's going to become in the future. So it might not be competitive right now in the startup phase and may need government support. Such as feed-in tariffs for renewable energy or public procurement. We need also some targeted promotion programs with a strong emphasis on policy advocacy and investor aftercare. Again, there is a lot of capacity building to be done in that area. And we also need policies to strengthen the host countries' advantages and the diffusion of low-carbon technology. We need to build low-carbon business clusters, to promote these type of industries. And we also need to foster linkages between TNCs and local firms to, again, transfer of technology, clean technology. Now, what kind of assistance developing countries need, to promote low-carbon foreign investment and to harness TNC's technological potential? Let me mention a few type of technical assistance, which can be developed. The first one is really to look at home country measures, which can support outward low-carbon foreign investment. For example, national investment guarantee agencies could reward low-carbon investors by granting them more favorable terms, so better grants, better loans for these type of investments. Also, it will be helpful if developed countries would increase their financial and technological support for low-carbon programs in developing countries. Again, aid, development cooperation between developed and developing countries in this area. For instance, we can see that one example is that China and the EU have established already a climate change partnership with a strong focus on technology cooperation and also the engagement of the business community. So this type of partnership will be very useful to develop, between developing countries and their development partners. What we can see, it's in the area of international financial institutions, which are actively engaged in supporting the move towards a low-carbon economy in developing countries. So this engagement should be geared towards furthering partnership approaches between the public and private sectors. We can see that there is a lot of room for PPPs, public-private partnerships, to promote clean energy and clean businesses. Also, an international low-carbon technical assistance center, as I mentioned before, could be established to support developing countries' efforts, especially least developed countries, to formulate and to implement national climate change mitigation strategies and action plans. So these are some of the proposals UNCTAD is putting forward to strengthen the technical assistance cooperation in this area. Finally, let me say a few words about low-carbon investment in West Asia, in this region. I must say West Asia has vast potential for renewable energy development in solar and wind power that can help reduce its dependency on fossil fuels and improve the energy security. What we can say also is that there have already been wide-ranging commitments to green investment in the region, but there is still a clear lack of financing for green projects. Ladies and gentlemen, this ends my presentation, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Benabet Tarchi, for this insight in FDI trends, low carbon investment and investment policies. We are running a little bit late. I would propose that we will have now refreshments just here in the room next, and that we are back at 11:15. Thank you. I have the pleasure then to introduce to you the moderator of the high-level session on green FDI. That is Ms. Nima Abou-Warde. Ms. Warde is a presenter of BBC World's weekly business and finance program, Middle East Business Report. She has reported, produced and presented programs for Al Jazeera and Dubai's Business Channel, as well as BBC World. She's also the founder and CEO of a personal finance website in the Arab world, and is a visiting university lecturer on the media in the United Arab Emirates. Nima, you have the floor. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for being here. Now, this is such an important topic for all of us. After all, it is all of our futures at stake, is it not? And I think that gets lost in translation sometimes. And I'd like to delve straight into some facts and figures that I hope will set the scene for our discussion and show us the opportunities and potential that we're talking about. But let us also remember that this is about green, clean energy, which is about our future. Okay? Now, last year saw a record $243 billion worth of finance and investments in the clean energy sector worldwide. Part of this is, of course, due to the downturn. Clean energy funding allocated by governments to help stimulate growth in response to the global economic recession rose sharply, quite sharply. It was $20 billion in 2009 and $75 billion in 2010. So why is this happening? Let us remember the two words, global warming. We won't go into that here, but let us remember. So what's the problem? Emissions. That's a big problem. The sources of emissions: electricity and heat, industry, steel, deforestation, transportation, agriculture, waste. What can we do about it? Well, it's all about renewable energy. The International Energy Agency estimates that nearly 50% of global electricity supplies will need to come from renewable energy sources by 2050 if we are to minimize significant irreversible climate change impacts. 2050 is not that far down the road. I think some people would say it's not achievable. Others here, I'm glad to hear, say it is quite achievable. Let's find out how. And of course, there is money to be made. We'll find out more about how to make money from our panelists and discussants. And I'd like it if we could actually touch upon real examples of how to go about things, lessons learned, so we make this a very practical session. We're going to have a discussion on stage for a few minutes. We will hear from our discussants on the floor. And please, if you have questions, raise your hand. We will have an open forum towards the end where you can post your own questions to the panelists and the participants. Now, the thing is, it's not just about saving the planet and the future. It's also about doing things like creating jobs, reducing dependence on foreign energy sources, enhancing national security, reducing pollution. When it comes to jobs, the last figure I have is 3 million jobs, which of course are set to increase in the renewable energy sector worldwide. A figure I have is that clean power assets could reach $2.3 trillion between 2010 and 2020. So a lot more jobs to come. So how can governments and investors do good and reap the rewards, be they financial or otherwise? Well, to discuss the challenges facing investors and policymakers, please welcome Abdullah Saleh, Under-Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Trade here in the United Arab Emirates, Anne McCall, the Chief Executive of Scottish Development International, Ajay Prakash Srivastava, the President of the Solar Energy Society of India and the President of Maharishi Solar Technologies, Thierry Leperc, President of Solar Direct in France, and Joachim Kundet, the Chief Executive of Siemens, based in Abu Dhabi. Our discussants sitting amongst you are Mr. Fathallah Sijil Mersi, Director General of the Moroccan Investment and Development Agency, Susan Kikwai, the Managing Director of Kenya Investment Authority, and Mr. Ramprakash Mauntrua, the Managing Director of the Board of Investment in Mauritius. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here once more. Now, we're told that 7% of Abu Dhabi's energy requirements will come from renewable energy. How is this achievable?
Thank you. And first of all, I would like to mention about the importance of the clean energy and renewable energy for the government of the UAE. There are four basic guidelines for the government and the strategy of UAE for this kind of development, for green development and renewable energy. One is raising a level of expertise in energy. The second, establishing strategic partnerships between the government and the private sector, and the partnership between UAE and the important countries in this field to transfer the technology and develop the projects. Not only in UAE, but also in other emerging markets and other economies. Third, adopting realistic approaches.
And that's exactly what I want to hear about, realistic approaches. So by 2020, 7% of your energy requirements, which are increasing all the time, to be provided by renewable sources. Let's take a step back. Masdar, which was such a flagship, innovative project, has been delayed by 4 years, mostly due to assumptions being made, technology not being able to deliver. Okay. So really, can you just tell us realistically how you're going to do this again?
It's comprehensive solution. I cannot say that only this step and that step. It's comprehensive solution to develop this approach. And we can start with the priority. And what's the priority? The awareness, to educate the people, to educate the private sector about the clean energy and what's the features for the future generation. And second, if we want to maintain the sustainable development for our economy and the growth for our economy, we need a source for the energy. Now, where we get the source of energy? We can get it from gas and fuel, which may cause the environment And we may approach other sources like solar power or through nuclear power plants. Okay. And this is where we focus in UAE. One is a master initiative. Master is not a master city, zero emissions carbon, but also it's a company establishing different projects and initiatives. One of their projects to build the largest solar power generation plant in UAE. The second one is to build the largest tower in the world based on the solar system. One of their initiative, which is started, the Masdar Institute for Technology. And
okay. So they're grandiose, excellent projects, but of course there are limitations. I'll just like to jump to you, the technology provider, before we hear about what Scotland is doing. When you hear this, are you scared because you can't actually deliver? Or are you excited because everything's ready and you just have to go ahead and do it?
Yeah, we are certainly not scared. We are certainly not scared. Otherwise we wouldn't be here. Now we are, to be honest, we are very excited. Because when, now let's go back to Masdar. When Masdar was established, the idea came up in 2006. In 2006, the environment looked a little bit different than it looks as of today. And what Masdar has done, they have adopted the plans to the environment. And I think that is actually the right way to do. I wouldn't necessarily say they have delayed the plans by 4 years. I wouldn't have seen an end to a development like Masdar City. And
there have been issues, though. I mean, look, there have been problems, there have been delays, and technology has been part of the issue. So really, my question to you is this. Even if you had the best intentions in the world and the deepest pockets to go with that, can you deliver? Is the technology there to enable this to happen?
A technology to make a Masdar City happen? Yes, it is there.
And the rest of it, the biggest solar field and so on?
Yes, technology is there. The question at the end, is it affordable and can the economy pay for that? At the end of the day, we are not a charity organization, Siemens, and I think there are not so many charity organizations around. At the end of the day, it's a question, can somebody afford to pay for that, and is it competitive, and does it make cities more competitive? And there are a lot of initiatives supporting the development of renewable energies and subsidizing renewable energies. But you have to install renewable energies into existing power generation, into existing cities. And that is where the challenge is. And I think that is where also a lot of development will take place. And that is the reason why we are in Masdar City, because we want to develop, we want to do R&D over there. We have the biggest lab, probably the biggest live lab that you can get, a new city where you can build a partnership, what we did with Masdar, and implement smart grid applications into that city.
So really what you're saying is that you can generate the power, but then the bottleneck is how do you use it? How do you marry it with the existing infrastructure and systems that people have in place? That's a big bottleneck.
That is a big problematic because it's not only to generate the power, it is also to make the power available when it's required. And that is the challenge. Okay. So we need somewhere energy storage, and energy storage is something where a lot of development will have to take place.
So in Scotland then, you've done a lot. Can you just give us a brief overview, but with the thought of what is it you would have done differently with hindsight?
What would we have done differently? Well, first of all, if I can just say a couple of words about what we have actually done. So we set out, we're blessed with natural resources in Scotland in terms of the geography of Scotland and the length of the coastline. We also have a lot of expertise from the oil and gas industry, which goes back many, many decades. So we put those two things together with a high level of government commitment to focus our minds on developing green technology and encouraging investors into Scotland. And we have done that by setting some very clear targets around renewable energy, how much of our energy should come from renewable energy, the reduction in greenhouse gases. We set some very ambitious targets, way beyond the ambitions of the European Community targets. And we're starting to look at how we're achieving those targets now. We've also managed to bring in some very key inward investors into Scotland over the last year. So we have an investment from Mitsubishi Power Systems in Europe, £100 million investment there. We have Doosan from Korea, who have invested for R&D technology, £170 million. And we have Gamesa from Spain. So Spain, on a European level, together with Germany, are clearly experts in that field as well. So we think we've achieved quite a lot in a short period of time. To answer your question about what would we have done differently, I think one of the key things is the grid connectivity is a very, very important one. We're turning our minds to that, and we do have the only test centre in the European Marine and Energy Centre up in Orkney in the north of Scotland, which is connected to the grid. It's the only grid-connected centre in the world. It's just at test stage now. We have to move that out and roll that out so that it becomes a practical application for all of Scotland, and we can connect that to the rest of Europe. So perhaps that's something we might have thought about doing a little bit earlier in the game, but clearly the level of investment and the finance involved in pulling these projects together is hugely significant. We have to have the public and the private sector working together. We've all got to be brave hearts, right? You know, in Scotland we're known as brave hearts, and we're quite bold in the way that we go about developing our policy, but we need that level of boldness and brave-heartedness from the private sector as well, and that's very difficult to do because it's such a long game, renewable energy.
And how are you making the decision regarding what to go for? So, for example, the ratio of solar versus wind versus anything else?
Well, we have, solar is not something that we are investing in, you know, particularly